Okay, let's talk about something that can be a real headache, dealing with HMRC. If you've ever felt completely stuck or just totally ignored, you are in the right place. We are going to walk through a step-by-step guide put together by the experts over a pro tax accountant that's designed to help you get your complaint heard and actually resolved.
Does it ever feel like you're just talking to a brick wall? Maybe you're waiting on a refund that's taking forever, or you're trying to fix a mistake on your tax bill, and you're just getting nowhere. It's so frustrating, and honestly, it's a really common situation to be in.
And when I say common, I mean it. Just look at this number. Over 700,000 formal complaints were filed against HMRC just last year. That is a massive figure, and it just goes to show you are definitely not alone in this. But here's the secret. It's not just about complaining, it's about knowing how to complain effectively.
And that is exactly what this is all about. The team at ProTax Accountant, they deal with these kinds of issues every single day. They've laid out the precise steps you need to take to make sure your complaint is actually heard, that it's taken seriously, and that it gets a fair resolution. So let's get into it.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about the common frustrations that lead to complaints. Then, we'll go through a pre-complaint checklist, super important. We're also going to break down HMRC's internal review process, look at how to escalate things if you need to, share some really powerful insider tips, and finally talk about when it might be time to call in a professional.
All right, first things first, let's identify the problem. What are the most common reasons people actually complain to HMRC? This is a key first step because chances are your issue is a totally valid one. Usually, complaints fall into a few key buckets. Unreasonable delays, that's a huge one. Maybe you're a freelancer in London waiting on a tax refund you were counting on. Errors in tax calculations are another big one. And then there's just the service itself, right? Getting no response, dealing with unhelpful staff, or getting letters that are just impossible to make sense of. If any of that sounds familiar, you've got legitimate grounds to complain.
Now, let's move on to what might be the most critical part of this whole thing, preparation. I'm telling you, a little bit of work up front can make a massive difference. Going in with a clear, well-documented case is basically half the battle. So here are the 4 essential steps. First, pinpoint the exact problem. Don't just say, the service was bad. Say, my refund from May 15th is delayed and I've called 3 times with no update. Be specific. Second, gather everything, every single letter, email, and record. Third, know what you want as a resolution. Is it an apology, a correction, or do you want professional fees refunded? And finally, and this one is so important, keep paying your taxes. If you stop payments while you're complaining, you can get hit with penalties and interest, which just makes everything more complicated.
So you filed your complaint. What happens next? Well, it enters HMRC's internal system, and understanding this process is going to help you manage your expectations and know what's coming. It's not just one person looking at your file, there's a whole formal structure. See, HMRC uses what they call a 2-tier system. Tier 1 is your initial complaint. Someone on their team investigates what happened and should get back to you with an outcome usually within about 6 weeks. If you're not happy with that, you can ask for a Tier 2 review. This is where a totally different person takes a fresh look at your case and the Tier 1 decision. This is considered HMRC's final say on the matter.
But what if their final decision still feels wrong? That's not all. Here's where most people go wrong. They think that Tier 2 review is the end of the road. But it isn't. You have some really powerful options for an independent review, and you absolutely need to know about them.
This timeline lays it all out. After you've gone through HMRC's internal process, your next stop is the Adjudicator's office. It's free and, most importantly, completely independent. If you're still not satisfied after that, the final step is to ask your local MP to refer your case to the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman. Think of them as the highest independent complaints body in the UK.
Okay, now for the good stuff. Some insider tips from the pros that can seriously increase your chances of success. Stay with me here. The next few points might really surprise you, and they could be the difference between a complaint that gets dismissed and one that actually gets results. First and foremost, you've got to check the emotion at the door. It's totally understandable to be angry, but as the experts always say, you have to take the fire and fury out of it. A professional, factual, and calm tone is just so much more effective. Stick to the facts, lay out the timeline, and clearly state the problem and what you want.
Now listen closely to this next word, maladministration. This isn't just some boring jargon. Using this specific term in your complaint signals that you believe HMRC has failed to follow its own procedures or has acted unfairly. Internally, this can actually trigger a much more serious review of their conduct. It's a really powerful word to use.
And here's a pro tip that can be a total game changer. Did you know you have a legal right to see the internal notes that HMRC has on you? This can be an incredibly powerful tool for finding evidence, especially if there's a disagreement over what was said on a call or a letter that was sent.
This is done through something called a subject access request, or SAR for short. You can ask for a copy of your self-assessment notes, for instance. I've heard stories where a SAR uncovered proof that a client had sent a letter that HMRC kept denying they received. It led to a six-figure repayment. Sometimes just mentioning that you intend to file a SAR can add a little urgency to your complaint.
So, the crucial question becomes, when do you keep going on your own, and when do you call for backup? While this process is designed to be accessible, let's be honest, tax is complicated. Sometimes you just need an expert in your corner. Let's talk about when it's time to get that help.
Think about it like this. The UK tax system is just notoriously complex. If the amount of money involved is high, or if the whole dispute is causing you a ton of stress and taking up all your time, it is often a really smart move to bring in a professional. They know the system, they speak the language, and they can build and argue a much stronger case for you.
After walking through all of these steps, from getting prepared to escalating your case, it can still feel like a pretty daunting maze. But the most important thing to remember is that you absolutely do not have to try and navigate it by yourself.
And this is exactly where the team at Pro Tax Accountant comes in. They don't just give you advice. They can literally take the entire burden right off your shoulders. They can manage the whole process for you, from drafting that first complaint to negotiating with HMRC and escalating it if needed, all the way through to the final resolution. So if you're facing a dispute with HMRC and you need that expert help, here's how you can get in touch with Pro Tax Accountant. You can reach them directly on WhatsApp or by phone at 07985689992, or you can drop them an email. You can also find this entire guide written out on their blog. And for more helpful guides just like this one, make sure you subscribe to their YouTube channel. And just a quick final note. The information we've talked about here is for general guidance. UK tax rules are complex, they can change, and your situation is unique. So before making any big financial decisions, you absolutely must consult with a qualified professional, like the experts at